All right, what's up, everybody? Miss Lynch here. I am back for part 2 of chapter 9, and right as I was getting started again, I had another robocall, and if this is one of those days where I get a million, I'm gonna scream because it keeps cutting off my videos and then I have to start over. It's frustrating. Jeez. Anyway, and I don't know how to turn it off without turning off all of my data that would inhibit me from recording this video. So if I get cut off, I will then come back for a third part, which I don't want to do, so I'll shut up and get to it, okay? Anyway. Okay, so last thing I was talking about was cotton cultivation. We were talking about the cotton gin being introduced in 1793, and it revolutionized the industry of American slavery because it would forever change expectation about output regarding cotton cultivation, okay? So that's where we were. Okay, so cotton then became, after all of this, cotton became the nation's largest export, and by 1820 there were 170 million pounds being exported. And there's a map on 258, the market revolution, the spread of cotton cultivation, 1820 to 1840. So if you look at that, you can see how quickly this spread, okay? All right, commercial farmers. Okay, so the North became the region that integrated an economy of commercial farms and manufacturing cities. So yeah, incorporating different economies as opposed to what is going on in the South, focusing on cotton, sugar, tobacco, okay? Which will be the staple crops of the South. But in the North, we're trying to get all of these different industries to create a balanced infrastructure, okay? Okay, so farmers grew crops and raised livestock for sale. Wheat production increased as the steel plow and the reaper became more widespread and accessible to farmers. Okay, so cities formed on our western frontier. They were connected by the railroads. And Cincinnati and Chicago will become like the two hot spots of the West during this time. Okay, there's also a shift in work from skilled artisans, which going back to our port cities, you know, back to Revolutionary era, but whenever I was saying the economy of our northern cities was really built on skilled artisans that ran their own shops and would have apprentices and would then teach them that skill and so on and so forth. But so that model of skilled artisans that will be replaced by factory workers or factory system, okay? Okay, so the factory system. First American factory comes into existence in 1790, started by Samuel Slater. All of our early factories will be textile related, okay? So, yeah, first large-scale factory is in Waltham, which is outside of Boston, just north, well, northwest-ish. Okay, so Waltham, it's 1814. Lowell, Massachusetts, which is just north of Waltham, becomes known as a mill town, okay? It's a group of factories, so everyone who's there is basically involved with the textile mills, okay? Okay, the early New England textile mill system largely relied on female and child labor. Child labor, I guess we won't really talk about that too much because that will come to a head early 1900s. People will actually start to recognize how terrible it is to send children to work. But in the textile mills, children and then women, particularly young women like teenagers, because they're petite by nature and they could get into tight areas They have smaller hands that can get into spaces that others might not be able to reach. Okay, but so this is kind of the main labor groups of the early textile system, okay? And then there's a map on 263, cotton mills, 1820s. So you can see how many mills were popping up in communities in the Northeast. Alrighty. So the growth of immigration, which this is certainly a wave that happens during the 1840s, but there are waves of immigration that happen throughout U.S. history, so this is just one of them. Okay, but so our economic expansion that's going on during this time fueled a demand for labor, and during this time there's an immigration spike from Ireland and Germany specifically, and a lot of immigrants will go to the Old Northwest, but cities like Cincinnati, St. Louis, Milwaukee, particularly with German, well, Irish and German, but lots of German immigrants going to these cities, and we will see a lot of our early large-scale breweries coming out of this, okay? Especially Milwaukee. Okay, like I said, a lot of Irish and German coming about during this time. The Irish specifically were fleeing the potato famine going on, which occurred from 1845 to 1851. So all of these people who are coming over, they filled low-wage positions, unskilled jobs, so our early factory positions, okay? Particularly the Irish, like I said. And there is a table, a chart for you to look on 262, the total number of immigrants by 5-year period. So you can see how concentrated immigration was during this time. Okay, and with that, this leads to the rise of nativism. Okay, so the influx of our Irish immigrants elevated fears from some native-born Americans, which could be argued this happens now because people are always worried about others coming and taking jobs, okay, rather than being upset with company owners that are giving away those jobs, but sure. But anyway, so there's a fear from native-born Americans of our immigrants coming over. Okay. And immigrants were largely blamed for urban crime, political corruption, alcohol abuse, and leading to undercutting wages, so leading to lower incomes for our native-born workers. Okay, the free individual. Okay, so westward migration and urban development created a mobile Caucasian population. So like I said, it's a wave of westward migration that will happen again over time as we just move further and further west as our boundaries move west. But so anyway, a mobile population being developed is the point of this, okay? American freedom had long been linked to the availability of land, right? We've talked about that, in the perpetual West. So that's exactly what I'm saying. We have waves of westward migration, and that's exactly what that comes down to, the idea of the perpetual West, all right? And this desire to always expand west is very much rooted in the concept of manifest destiny, in which it is this ordained right of individuals, Christian individuals, because it is God telling them to go west, my son, But yeah, so this concept of manifest destiny will grow in popularity, and it's very much used as justification for people who do move west and, yeah. Okay, so it is encouraged by our transcendentalists of the time, like Emerson and Thoreau. Okay, and for free African Americans, exclusion from economic and educational opportunities remained in the West. Okay, and we will see in different areas African American communities creating schools and churches. Yeah, and we'll talk about that more a little bit down the road, but okay. Alrighty. Okay, also in the 1820s, there is the Second Great Awakening, which the First Great Awakening goes back to our previous generations and, all of our colonists that were coming over. And this ties into manifest destiny, okay? This is this ordained right and mission to relocate, to take your message with you, okay? So the Second Great Awakening just ties into all of that, all right? Okay, so it's a religious revolution, democratized version of American Christianity, and the denominations of Baptists and Methodists will grow substantially. Yeah. I'm just generalizing here, but Methodist in the north and the Baptists in the south a little bit more, okay? But also new denominations come about, and one of those is Mormonism, okay? So founded in the 1820s by Joseph Smith. He and his followers go west. This will eventually take them to Utah. Okay, so we will, I guess we'll talk about Utah next chapter a little bit more. But anyway, so this just illustrates what is going on with different religious sects during the early 1800s, okay? Okay, so the cult of domesticity. Going back to what I've said in regards to the public sphere and the private sphere, and the public sphere represents the outside world and the workforce and what is typically deemed as male, quote unquote, and the private sphere is the opposite of all of that, okay? So the home, the feminine, the female, okay? So let me just backtrack a second. Whenever we were coming out of the American Revolution, I said that there was a rise in the idea of Republican motherhood, where women should actually be part of the public sphere, okay, politics and education. And the reason that was argued was to help them raise good sons who would then become our politicians and all of that, okay? So, Republican motherhood is then overshadowed by what becomes the cult of domesticity, which the cult of domesticity goes against Republican motherhood and reinforces the concept of spheres, okay? Yes, so basically this has shaped the gender roles that we still really have in place today, by and large, okay? But anyway, okay, so cult of domesticity. Women were excluded from the market revolution opportunities. So as all of our farming equipment becomes more accessible, let's talk about, let's pretend like we're looking at a family and they are wheat farmers, okay? So as mills come into towns and it's easier to process your grain, this gives that, since that would traditionally be a man's duty, it would give him more time because he's sending it off to the mill to be processed. He now has more time to go out into the world, the public sphere, if you will, and look for outside work, okay? While those types of duties are being eased and giving men this extra time to go look for work, the equivalent for women is not there, okay? So their duties that had always remained, so child rearing, housekeeping, all of that, that will stay in place while men's work shifts during this time, okay? So going out into the public sphere, to the outside world, okay, that's the workforce, that's the market that's being created during this time, our market revolution, okay? So this shift in gendered work, it's not necessarily this outright attack on women and saying, no, we have the opportunity to go look for outside work while you stay in the home. It's just how it progressed over time, and technology was very much a part of that, okay? So, but this shift happens, okay? Regardless of how it happens, okay? And like I said, our spheres are reinforced during this time. Pretty much created the gender roles that we know today. And this new definition of femininity emerged. In line with that, the private sphere is, timid and demure and submissive. So these notions of femininity and masculinity are reinforced too, okay? All right, yes, but with our cult of domesticity, it was then told to women that they should be embracing these qualities, and why would you want to be masculine is what it was basically what it came down to. You should be embracing every bit of femininity that you possibly could, right? But yeah, so, and with that, they were supposed to find fulfillment in the duties within their sphere, which meant the home. And the way they were supposed to find that fulfillment was through household technology. So, if you have a nice coal-burning stove, then you should want to cook and you should want to make meals for your family. And later on, we'll see that in the 20s as lots of new gadgets come into we won't even get to that far, I'm sorry. Anyway, this is reinforced when the 20s rolls around because there are things like refrigerators and vacuum cleaners and all of that stuff that comes into the home that is supposed to make the common wife want to do these things and be happy with her position. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so women and work is our last slide. So let's hit this before somebody tries to call me again. Okay, so women and work. Alrighty. So only low-paying jobs were available to women. Think about our factory system, right? So yeah, they could be domestic servants, factory workers, seamstresses, and going in line with that, seamstresses, laundresses, okay? And not working outside of the house became known as a badge of respectability, okay? So embracing that sphere, that, the femininity of not having to work and not having to leave your home, okay? Yeah, it becomes this badge of honor. Oh, my lights are going off. Whatever, anyway. What a weird angle. Okay, well, that is what I have for chapter 9. Okay, if you guys have any questions for me, please feel free to give me a shout. And otherwise, I will see you back here for chapter 10. Okay? Okie dokie, I will talk to you later. Bye.